Jeremy with Hard to Master. We're going to be doing a how to play video for Factory 42 for the Greater Good Edition. This is a new edition by Dragon Dawn Production. And we do have the board set up here for a 3-player game, but the game does play from 2 to 5 players, and we will signify a few of the differences in the game. So some general setup here is you are going to have 5 event cards here. The 6th card is going to be actually printed on the board for the final round. In addition, we have 3 government contracts, but if it was a 4-player game, you'd have 4, 5-player game 5, 2-player game 2. In addition to that, you do have your workers here, and if you have a 2 to 3-player game, you're going to play with 7, whereas if you have a 4 and 5-player game, you're going to play with 6. So you would remove this 1 worker. Now we do have some different tiles and stuff that are here that are not on our board per se. They're just normally a generalized pool that you would take whenever you add that to your warehouse. But we have it on the board here so that you can see those components and they're easy to reach. In addition to that, we do have 2 of every resource here in the common pool that we're going to dump into the tower to begin with. And as you see, some come out, some stay in. So we would take all these out and we would put these back into the supply to begin the game. So all these will come out, they would go back to their certain regions where they're going to be over there on the common just market board per se. So we'll move these out of the way, knowing that they would go back into there. Now Factory 42 is a worker placement game. You're going to be placing workers, so in player turn order, each person will be placing 1 worker out on the board. Now they could be a general worker or they could be a commissar, denoted by this C in a hexagonal space here versus a normal worker in a square. Common workers always have to be placed in the lowest number up to the highest number, whereas the commissar can be placed at any point on the placement. After everybody has placed all of their workers, as regular workers or commissars, then you will begin the action phases where you're going to go through all the numbered spaces. Now most of them will be here on the main board, but once we get to a certain spot, we're going to flip over to our personal board here. So it shows you right here, trading is the 7th activation, whereas then it says refer to your player board for details. For your 8th and 9th, you'll come back to the main board for the 10th action, and then 11 and 12 will bring you back to your personal board. Once you've completed that, you'll go to end of round scoring at the 12th action slot. So at the beginning of the action phases, you're going to be doing the event. Now there are 5 events. The last event will be on the board, like I said. So you would draw and flip over this event. On this event, you're going to see that there's a common pool. It says remove all of the lichen. So we would remove all the lichen that are in this common pool that we have set aside that we would be dumping in. In addition to that, then it says, for this round, every worker that is placed in the trading gains a rosette immediately. Now, rosettes are used over here in the accounting area because they can be traded for points. So you'll notice anything with this star is going to give you a point, which will move you up this point track. If it has this red rosette symbol, these generate points. If you do this action at the end of the game, so many will be worth points as well. Now you can gain these rosettes from different action spaces on the board. A lot of times your commissar is going to give you these rosettes. They're basically, the commissar is the overseer of that location, so they will basically boost actions a lot of times, but give you these rosettes in return so that you could save them up and then trade them in for points as you go. After we've done this, you would look and see if people have workers here, and if they did have workers here, you would activate this spot. Now right here in the requisition area, the commissar will go last. Now I would look at the first worker. The first worker says I have 5 points that I could put into the common pool of different resources. Now All the little ones are going to be worth 1 point as far as the points that they require to go in there. Now your medium-sized cubes are going to be worth 2, but there is one exception, and that is coal. Coal is going to be 4 points to put into the common pool, whereas all of the other medium like wood, copper, mushroom, those are going to be worth 2. Now you can't take magic and just throw it in there, so just remember that. And then the big ones like marble, gold, and beer are going to cost you 3 points to place them into the common pool. So I would have 5 points. I could take beer for 3 and mushrooms for 2, or I could take 2 flax. Now, why does it matter is you are going to be trying to put things in there at times that you can boost steam, because steam helps you to do manufacturing of these government contracts. In addition, you could block people from being able to complete them because they don't have steam. So with the 5 common pool points, I place them into the common pool. I gain my rosette, which comes to my board. Now these are limited. So if we run out of resources, they're limited and cannot be utilized until they come back to the market, including rosettes. So you may do things and deplete this stack if there are more, but I could deplete that so that other people might not be able to gain them on their turn. Now, over here, it's going to say how many common pool points I can spend to place them into my warehouse. Now, my warehouse right now in the beginning has 4 spaces where I could put any 4 cubes in those spaces. Over time, if I do the research action, which we'll get to, I will be able to upgrade my warehouse to be able to store more resources. So that would be the resources points to the common pool, rosette to my board, and then the warehouse personal supply resources I would gain. If more people went here, you would see they would get 7 common pool points. They may be doing a gold, a beer, and a lichen. They can use any cubes that are on this board as long as they amount to the number or sum of the total. So over here, you'll see that person would gain 2 points to come into their warehouse. Now that's going to continue all the way down as many people have gone there until you get here to the commissar. Now the commissar is going to get to place 2 plus 2 points per worker there. So if there's another worker there, they're going to get 2 plus 2. They get 4 points to place in. They're also going to gain a rosette, and they're going to gain 1 point of resources per worker that they have there, or that has placed there. That would allow them to gain just like this person did. After this requisition is complete, then the bureaucracy phase is going to be activated, and that is where whoever's the starting player of that round, which has a token. Now this is an upgraded token. There is a cardboard token, which would be your normal first player token. They will place all of these cubes that have been put into the common supply, whether from an event or from a requisition phase. They're going to place them and jump them into the tower. That is whoever's starting player. That's all that the second action phase is to drop those common pool cubes into the tower. Then over here in loading, if there were people at, say there was a commissar and there was a worker over here. Now there are these different carts, and these carts, shipping carts, are going to be loaded here. Now you're going to have a cart here, and then each worker is going to, they're going to take 1 to 4 cubes from the common pool, and they're going to send it down into the cart to come down and eventually come up to shipping. Now, if there is a commissar there, they are going to force you to add 1 additional cube to that cart, and whenever they do, they're going to gain the rosette for that. Now, each cart can hold a number of 6 cubes max, and that is no matter the size. So if there was, maybe we pull from the common supply, and we put that magic that was there, we put that beer that was there, we put another beer and magic, why not? Then we take some lichens, we put them in there. Well, right now we have 5 cubes we can place, so that's all we would place. We would put up to 4, but we would have to put one more. So with that commissar being there, you're going to put a minimum of 2, a maximum of 5 into that cart. Then it comes down into the spiking area. And the spiking area is going to be this bag here. Now at the beginning of the game, we placed different resources into the spiking bag to begin. Now there would be 1 gold, 1 marble, 1 beer, and 1 magic. But I believe everything else is going to have 2 of those resources into the spiking bag. Now, if there was a commissar here and a worker here, then you would go and add 4 cubes. The commissar would take any 4 cubes from the resource board. They're going to place them into the spiking bag. So let's say we do this, and they go into the spiking bag. Now, the first worker is going to draw 3 cubes out of the bag, and then 1 more for each worker that is at the location. So if there's another one, so we got 4 people there, or 4 cubes for those workers that are there. Then each worker is going to place up to 2 of these cubes into an unshipped cart. Now there's only this cart here. Let's say we have another one, and this, he decides to put the 1 in there because remember, we're at a max of 6 cubes. Now then, after this location has been resolved, these carts are going to come up, and there could be a worker and a commissar here. Now in the shipping area, this is where the commissar could assign a worker to place both carts. Now, if you're the only one there, it could be really good because you're going to be placing both of these carts onto your board, which could be really good if you've set it up to ship them out and complete more government contracts through that manufacturing phase. But if there's no commissar, then you would just take 1. If another person was there, hopefully there's another cart with cubes in there so that they could take them. This is a kind of cutthroat game, so at times that may really hurt you because you wanted to ship stuff out so that you did not get penalized for points, but there's not the resources or things here. You did not have any left over in your warehouse from before or gained any from the requisition phase, which could mean that you don't have anything to do the manufacturing where you have a worker at. But this worker decided to ship 1 of the 2 carts on the left of them, which is these front 2 spaces, to any player board. Now they don't have to do theirs. It's beneficial to, but they put it in either dock 1 or dock 2. Now that is important because when we get to it, dock 1 is going to go to the manufacturing 1 area, location 9, whereas dock 2 is going to do location 11, which is manufacturing 2, which is after the accounting phase. So that may be a determining factor of where you place this cart, or if you have some things that we've talked about over here in research that could allow you to ship here like a crane. Over here in the steam generation location, this is where you're going to be burning the different resources to create steam. Now, all the resources in the common pool are going to be burnt at the beginning. So if we burn all these, we can see that none of the metals will gain any steam. So we would remove them, as well as any of the marble. So basically any big cubes, any magic, and then the metals. Everything else can be burned. So we move that out. All this would be burned. So if we burn base off of this, we would get 1 for the lichen, 2 for the other lichen, and then 2 for the mushroom. So the steam generated already started at 4. Now from this point on, each worker is going to have the option to burn things off of their personal board. So if they had leftover resources before, or they had an abundance of resources here, they could burn this And whenever they do burn those resources, it would boost this as well. So if I burn 2 wood, now we're up to 8 steam generated, and I would have gained a rosette. Now if I had a second worker there and I still had resources, so I could have done that separate and done 1 wood, and then done a second one and gained 2 more rosettes for being the second person. Now if a third person was there, then they would do the same thing as long as it hadn't bust, and they would gain 3 rosette for that. But if the steam generated gets too high and it gets to 15, it's going to bust. And when that happens, this is going to go down 7 spaces back to the 8. And that just limits the steam that can be generated by doing this manufacturing. And so if you do not have the steam to generate, you cannot manufacture these government contracts unless you have a steam generator, which would be on your board because you built it in one of the future phases we will go over. So that is steam generation. We're boosting the steam, gaining rosettes for taking that action, trying to keep the steam high, but maybe not bust, or possibly bust to ruin it for other people. So after we look at steam generation, we're going to look at the trading at the market, and every round you're going to flip over a new market card, so the market is going to change. Now if there was a commissar there, you're going to take a rosette from everybody that wants to trade, so they will have to pay you a rosette to take that action. But if they do and they are here ready to trade, they can trade any number of one of these resources. So flax and lichen can be traded together, whereas mushrooms are traded separate. And I could trade 3 mushrooms, which would give me on this specific card 6 points to spend. Now I could trade 3 mushrooms for a marble or for a magic. And it's a little pricey, but you may need that to complete this contract. And you can only do 1 trade per trade worker that you have there. So you can trade any number of that 1 resource for another resource, but it must go to the warehouse. Any excess trade value that you have. So if you had a 6 worth of things and you only spent 4, and I mean these are even numbers here, so you're gonna be able to do that unless you did maybe a coal and a steel. That's 5 and there's no 1s to trade for. You would lose that trade value. So trading at the market, each worker is going to pay a commissar 1 rosette if they want to take that action. Then they will trade. The 2 amount is what you get for trading the resource, and what you can buy for is on the from amount. Then the next round you will see that a new card could come out and it's got different amounts. So this is a straight across. 1 flax for 1 point of or amount for trade. So if I traded 4 flax, I could essentially get a beer or a marble. After you do the trading location, then if you had workers on your personal board, you would take these actions. So in player order, we would activate this. I'm over here, research. I'm going to perform any one of the following actions. So I could spend resources from my board to upgrade my warehouse essentially. I could spend 2 wood and any other material to get a crane. Now cranes are good because like I said earlier, if I wanted to use Manufacturing 2 and I had my cart here, well I could use a crane to get resources from my warehouse or this dock to complete that manufacturing turn. In addition, I could get an incinerator. An incinerator is good for if the steam had bust and there's not enough steam to generate multiple government orders that I want to do through manufacturing. I could create my own steam. Now I would need to spend 3 metal to create this steam incinerator. And once I do that, then later I could burn resources to generate my own personal steam, which is what these tokens are for, so that maybe I could spend the 2 I need to the supply to complete one of these orders up here. Now a small expansion and a large expansion are these tiles here, which basically upgrade your warehouse, as you can see, to give you more spaces to store resources. So to build a small expansion, I need to spend 2 general resources materials up here and 2 steam. And I could use this steam from the supply up there if it's generated and I have a worker to do that. A large expansion costs 3 of those same materials, but it's going to also cost 3 steam. You can use personal steam if you've generated it, or the main supply of steam. In addition, if you have a commissar there, you could spend 2 rosette once and then you would gain a point, or you could gain a magic cube. Additionally, it will also provide you with 1 magic cube that you can use as any resource or a steam for research. So if I needed to use that magic as steam in the instance of building one of these expansions, I could do that. Now, after the research phase, you're going to look over at manufacturing, and if you've placed workers here to activate this zone, you're going to produce 1 or more finished goods. So if I had these resources here, well, to complete these government resources, these government orders, I would need these resources. Now I could produce the minimum amount, which will not give me any rosettes. I could produce the standard amount, which would give me 1 rosette, or I could produce the optimal amount, which would give me 2 rosettes. Now I can do any number of orders and levels that I want to. Now it is important to do different contracts, because when we get down here to end of scoring, it's going to dictate who's going to get penalized and who is rewarded for completing these contracts. So if I have 1 metal and I have 1 wood, I could do this. Now I don't have any metal here, but I do have this magic, and I do have a commissar. And your commissar will provide you with a magic cube, just like over here. And I could use that magic cube for the steam or the resources. So let's say that I want to do this one here. I cannot, because I do not have all the stuff. I do have the magic that I could do for the metal, and this symbol means any metal. This symbol means any material, and I do have 2 lichen. This one means that I need wood, and I do not have wood, so I could complete this at the minimal amount, but that would not be best. Let's look right here. I do not have enough to get the optimal amount here. I do have the amount to do the standard, because I could use that magic cube and the beer, which would give me 1 rosette. And there is plenty of steam up there to generate that one. And if I look at this one here, this one says 2 different foods, and then a marble, which I do have 2 different foods, and I could use this magic as a marble. So the best option here would be to do this beer and this mushroom and this magic, spending 1 of these steam to get 2 rosettes. So I would take 2 rosette. In addition to that, I would take this worker and I'd put it there. Now I could save this magic here, because I had a commissar, which would have given me the magic that I needed to complete that without spending it. So I still have these resources in my dock, whereas these were spent and they would go back to the board. Now, after we finished over here at the manufacturing, we're going to come back over here to accounting. So we're going back to the main board. And whenever we do that, we're going to look at the workers here. Now, if you do have a commissar there, the commissar is going to take a bribe. So you would have to pay them 1 cube for every worker who wants to perform the actions. Now, if you don't bribe them, you're not going to take any actions. So you could place someone there to block and not take the actions, because you don't want to give them cubes to maybe do their next action on their board. But each worker is going to perform 2 of the following actions without performing the same action twice. So you cannot double up on these. So I could bribe the committee, spending 1 marble, 1 beer, or 1 gold to gain a point. So if I were to spend this beer, then I could up my score by a point. And if, as my second action here, I call in a favor, I spend 1 rosette to gain 1 point. So that could have been my 2 actions. Or if I had a lot of rosettes and I didn't care about putting them back in the supply, I could just call in a favor and exploit fame. Now if I do that, I already placed the 1, I put the other 2. That gives me an additional 3 points. So instead of that, now I'm at 4 points. That's pretty good if you can get a bunch of rosettes. The last option over here is to cheat. Now I could spend 3 of any resource to gain a point. So as you can see, the more valuable resources are going to give you a point. If you trade them 1 resource for a point, whereas right here, I'm going to gain a point for rosettes. And then last option, I could spend any 3 cubes for 1 point. Now you cannot double up. Like I said, you must pick 2 different actions if you want to actually do it, but you don't have to do both actions. You could just do 1. Now after you do accounting, you're going to come back to your player board. That's where you're going to do Manufacturing 2. And Manufacturing 2 is where you're going to do the exact same thing as number 1, but you're using Dock 2. Now if you have a crane, again, you could pull from your warehouse or from another cart. So after you finish Manufacturing 2, you're going to come down to end of round scoring, which is location 12. Now, the government orders, even if you've done the same one multiple times, they only count for once for scoring purposes. Now, the player with the most completed government orders is going to gain a rosette. So if we had completed 2 orders, then we would gain 1 rosette. If there's a tie, then all the tie players will gain that rosette. Now you're going to gain 2 points for each one of those contracts you did. So let's say I had the most, I got my 1 rosette. There's 2 workers over there. I've completed 2 orders. So I'm going to get 4 points, 2 for each order. In addition, if there's a non-completed contract, then each player will either lose a point or you must pay 2 rosettes. Now, if you had multiple non-completed government orders, you could just pay the 2 rosettes, or you could pay 1 point for each order that you did not complete. That is your choice. And once you've completed the end of round scoring, you would start all over. So you'd pull all your workers back. You're going to draw out a new market card. You're going to remove that event. And then you're going to place all your workers out again. Now, after you've done that, you would go back and you would flip over the next event card. And you would continue on. And then over here with the government contracts, any manufacturer contracts are going to go away. And then you will replenish them with the ones that need to be replaced. So you would put 2 more in a 3-player game because this one did not get touched. But these 2, we said, were completed. Now you will continue that until you get to the final round of the game. Now in the final round of the game, you've gone through these 5 cards. You're in the 6th round. And during the 6th round, after it's over, the game will immediately end. And the ongoing effect for this one is that accounting additionally costs 1 extra rosette per person. And that must be paid at placement. So not whenever you get over there at the end of the game, you're going to pay when you place. Now, after this is done, you're going to have in-game scoring, and you're going to get 1 point for every 3 rosette. So every 3 rosette you have will gain you additional point. Whoever has the most resources will also gain a point. And then the most standard improvements on your board, which would be the crane, the incinerator, and the small and large expansions, those are going to, whoever has the most upgraded improvements is going to gain a point additionally. Then you will check the score tracker, and whichever player has the most points after doing this end of game scoring, which is done after basically in the 12th action spot here of that round, then whoever had the most after looking at these 3 lines will be the winner. If there's a tie, the player with the most leftover rosettes after doing the trade-in will be the winner. If it is a tie after checking rosettes, then it is a shared victory. So that is how you play Factory 42 for the Greater Good edition. There's a lot of strategy built within. Definitely want to check out and utilize this Steam tracker, as well as blocking people on the board, getting the commissars in the right spot, and having them have to give you rosettes and things to take actions. Definitely getting the right shipping carts and getting them on your board to manufacture and complete contracts is a very important thing in this game. So that is Factory 42 for the Greater Good edition by Dragon Dawn Productions. This is Jeremy with Hard to Master. If you like this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Until next time, we'll see ya.